Hey everybody, I'm Dave from Good in the Home Garden. Today I'm going to be doing one of my favorite things, and that is propagating more plants. And in particular, we're going to do a Hydrangea macrophylla, which is, in my case, is a lacecap hydrangea that I've got. And I'll show you how I do that. Now, you would typically want to wait until after they've bloomed to do this so you can enjoy those flowers. But I'm going to go ahead and do it this way because I need to do some corrective pruning on it. It's gotten a little bit leggy, and I'll show you what that means now. So here's the hydrangea. You can see it's kind of stretching out here into the walkway. Back in this area, it's stretched over this direction toward the maple tree. And it's just gotten a little bit leggy. So I want to trim off a little bit of it, but I'm going to use the excess that I trim off to actually make some new hydrangea plants. So here you can see I've got a bunch of branches here that are just excess branches that I don't need anymore on that hydrangea. Look at that. You can see how that is. Most of it is hardwood up through there, and then there's some other growth. You can root hydrangea pretty much on hardwood, softwood, greenwood, any kind of wood. It is very easily rooted. So let me just show you here. I'm just going to trim this off here, and for this I'm going to pinch off the extra branches off the side because I want to minimize how much foliage is there. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it in this little container of sand. That's all I need. Now with sand, it's kind of a sterile medium and will hold the cutting there in place just like that. So I'll do that for quite a few of these and just do a variety of these cuttings. In fact, here is one I can cut off that is almost all green, and that's a pretty good cutting. I can actually get 2 plants out of this one because I'll just pull off those leaves here and I trim off the top part. So now I have this piece and I have this piece. And with the top piece, which would be more of the stem cutting, I'm going to trim off these bigger leaves. And sorry if you got too much wind noise going on. It's a pretty windy day today. And I'll stick that in here. And on this one, I'm going to pinch off one of the leaves. And I'm going to reduce the size of this one a little bit. Because one of the worst things you can do with a cutting is to let it dry out. And the more leaf surface area you have, the more it can dry out. You want to reduce that kind of problem up front by reducing that leaf size. Remember that the leaf goes through a process of transpiration where it pushes out water and moisture and things like that. And so the less water you can lose off the plant, the better your chances of success are with the cutting. So I've got quite a few here of really good cutting material. Quite a few branches of really good cutting material. Now on hydrangeas, you don't have to worry about internodal or nodal cuttings. And if you look here, here's a node and here's a node. The node is where the actual leaves and stuff come from. That's where a lot of roots will form on a lot of plants. But on a hydrangea, you don't even have to worry about that. You can do an internodal cutting right here, or you can do a nodal cutting. In this one, I'm going to do a nodal cutting just because either way is good. On some other plants, you probably would want to do a nodal cutting, but for hydrangeas, it's pretty easy. So I'm going to pull a lot of these out. And sometimes if you have a cutting like this, or say maybe you've got some medium-sized leaves, maybe you pinch the middle. Pinch that top part out and exert the growth back down into the plant. So I'm going to get quite a few cuttings out of this small bunch. It's actually more than I thought for. The hydrangeas like shade. That's where we've got them over here in this shade garden area. And this one doesn't look so great, but I'm going to stick it anyway and just see what happens. You can make a lot of plants for yourself this way. Now hydrangea, there's no real magic to it. There's no real tricks. It's a very simple and easy plant to propagate. You can do it in water if you want to, but I don't do anything in water except for maybe willow cuttings, which are pretty easy to do in water. Maybe coleus every now and then if I just felt like doing it that way, but most of the time it will just be in sand or soil of some sort. I'm not putting any rooting hormone on these because they don't need it. I think it's just a waste sometimes to use rooting hormone. I used to use it all the time on everything, and I don't now because it's one step I can eliminate. I can do a lot more cuttings faster. And if they're going to root well without it, why bother? So some of that is just knowing what is going to root real easy and what isn't. Like hydrangeas, you should have a lot of success with them as long as you keep them healthy. And to do that, again, apologize for the wind, you can see it blowing around everywhere, but a lot of with a hydrangea, keeping it healthy is simply keeping it moist, not letting it dry out, making sure it's not getting too moist, and that might mean venting your container. And so we'll talk about the container next. The container I am using is a recycled plastic container. It's actually an old cheese container that we bought cheese at the store from, and we took that container, cleaned it out real good, and I have two of them. And one I'm going to use for the bottom, the other I'm going to use for the top. If you have any kind of plastic totes or things like that, you could use those too. There's no real magic to it. The point of the totes is to keep it humid, okay, like we talked about earlier. You don't want to get water loss on your cuttings. So I may stick a couple more in here, but this is kind of what it looks like now. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 cuttings in here right now. I'm going to tighten it up a little bit and add a couple more over here. Maybe see if I can get about 16 or 18 cuttings in here. And then after I do that, I'm going to take this other lid, which is the same type of container, and just do this. Notice there's enough space in there for the cuttings, just a little bit of air room in it. And I'll just come by every now and then and open this up and close it up. It can be kept outdoors in the shade, especially if you're past the chance of frost. I wouldn't put it out this early yet outdoors because we have one more night, I think, that's going to be kind of low temperatures, but I don't think it's going to frost. Just got to be careful. I'll have these in on my greenhouse, not my greenhouse, my garage shelves where I've got some heated plant mats, and I'll let them root there for a couple weeks. It's probably all it'll take, about 2 weeks, maybe 3, and I should have some good roots on these. And we'll come back, revisit when we do a garden tour or something like that on these. So these are Hydrangea cuttings. It works for Hydrangea macrophylla and macrophylla. Those are both pretty easy to propagate. I have gotten oak leaf hydrangea to propagate, but not as reliably as I do these. These you can do no problem. Now I've just put a little bit of water in here. I'm not going to soak this thing. I just want to have enough water in this container to keep it hydrated so they don't lose water through the leaves. You can see there the sand is just moist and wet, but that's really all I'm going to do. I don't want any standing water in it. So you got to make sure you put a little bit of something in there, but don't overdo it. If you have any questions, feel free to post in the comments. Any suggestions, feel free to do that. What worked for you, that's great too. But I'm Dave from From the Home Garden. Thanks for watching this video. Please like and subscribe, and look forward to talking to you again about more garden stuff.